Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I am Matt Pierce, the Learning and Video Ambassador here from TechSmith, and today we are going to be talking about the newest version of Camtasia, Camtasia 2021. If you hadn't heard, it just released a couple weeks ago. We're going to be going through some of the awesome new features. We might even talk about a few things that are old that you just didn't even know about just because in the process of showing off some of these things. And later in the show, I'm going to let you know that we're going to have a guest join us, Jason Valade, who is an instructional designer, master trainer. If you've been to some of our Camtasia webinars, you may have heard from Jason. You've maybe been taken a training from him. He's going to be joining us to go over some of his top features as well. But in the meantime, before he joins us, we're going to be talking about some of the new things. So I have been at TechSmith for a very long time. I've used Camtasia for a very long time. I think the first version of Camtasia I ever used was Camtasia Studio, when we still use Studio in the title, and it was version 3, I believe. So I've seen a lot of iterations. That was in 2006. So I can tell you, I've been playing with this more and more lately, and really digging into these features in preparation for today's show. And I am just really, really thrilled to be able to show off some of these things because I think, it's always easy to say this is the best release ever, but I think these things are so awesome. So we're gonna dive right into them. If you do have questions, comments, thoughts, if you're watching live, go ahead and put those in the chat. If you're listening to the podcast later on, you might want to go check out the video on YouTube or on LinkedIn or Facebook. It's going to be fairly visual today, but we'll try to describe things so you can still get value out of these features and hearing what they can do for you as you're building your projects in Camtasia. So where we're going to start, we've got at least 5 things we're going to cover today. The first thing I want to start off by talking about, and I'm going to show that to you in just a second, but we're going to start talking about what's called proxy video. And the reason I want to explain this concept first, because it's something I think it's new if you're not heavily into video editors. You haven't done a lot of video editing, but it's super cool. So let's kind of lay out an example here. Let's say you're working with a project and it's got really large video files. For instance, you've got a DSLR camera, you're bringing in that footage, maybe you've got a really big screen recording, and maybe you've noticed sometimes video playback on those situations in the editor is a little choppy, a little bit slow. And partly that's because you're dealing with such big files. It's trying to keep track of everything and change. You might see it stutter. What proxy video is going to do is when you use proxy video, it's basically going to make a lower quality version for inside of the editor. However, when you go to produce, it's still going to produce at that high quality. It's just going to say, like, we're going to make this a little bit less quality for your editing purposes, just because it doesn't need to be perfect right now. We'll make that a little bit smoother of an experience. We're going to make that a lot better. And then what proxy video is going to allow you to do is when you produce, you still get the best quality. So let me show you what we're talking about here, though. Let me just go ahead and bring up, this is a project file. I have done some insane things that no person should ever actually probably do. I've got, if you look at my timeline here, you'll see that I've got 10 tracks of very long videos. And I did trim this a little bit. So we're talking, these are at least 15-minute long videos, all of this previous episode of the show. I've stacked them up on top of each other. I'm not going to hit play because the audio we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. But I want to come down to this. You can see here, as just I'm playing back, it's, I've got a lot going on. So it's always kind of hard to tell, is it Camtasia? Is it the live stream? But if I just kind of scrub along here, it's pretty choppy. And if I was to play it back, it would be, it's okay. And I've got a pretty good machine. Now I want to take this clip down here on the end, and we're going to come over here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that track. I've already applied proxy video, the proxy effect to this video clip, and this is just a stock asset. But look at that, how smooth. I can just clip along there. It's a little choppy in my playback on the stream, it looks like, but some of that's probably just streaming, but it's way better than way over here, right? Like where I just moved my playhead and it took a second to kind of load everything up. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, I want to show you how to apply proxy. We'll talk about that. And I'm going to let that work because it takes a few seconds in the background to make sure that it's kind of doing almost like a render effect. And then we'll talk about some other things in the meantime, so then we can come back and see how it does. To actually do proxy, go to your media bin. So I've got all these videos up here. Holy cow. You can see I actually applied proxy to one. I'm going to take this first one, just right click on it. And there's a little category called proxy video, and it says create proxy video. And now just going to do that to a bunch of these and let Camtasia go to work on them in the background. And when you'll see, they'll have, I got the proxy video. You can tell by the orange dot there. Let's see, proxy video. And we're going to see how much this changes that impact overall. That one might still be rendering. So some of these might take a while because they're kind of big, which, you know, we'll do those for now and see what happens. So while we're waiting for that proxy videos to get ready, what we're going to do is I want to talk about the number 2 thing is transitions. So let me just go to our transitions tab here, and you can see, I don't know if I can, you can see it's probably a little hard to read on the screen, but you can see we've got lots of transitions there. We've added, I think it was like 75 transitions. Now, let's scroll down here a little bit, you can see. So I'm just going to keep scrolling here. This is a lot of transitions. Now, real quick, before we get into all of them, because I'm not going to read 75 transitions to you, I have feelings about transitions. I am almost against transitions. I don't think we should use so many transitions. I think it's like, oh gosh, because what happens is people go in and use all 75 to 85 of them, right? Like then you're like, what have you done to my video? Or what have you done to this video? Why did you use all of them? I think, rule of thumb, transitions need to have a purpose. They should be conveying something. However, the thing that I love about all the things that Camtasia has added is I've been able to do some really cool things like in small bits, not just from like image, like video to video, but with text and bringing text in or bringing some other elements in. These transitions really open up some opportunities. So I want to show you a few, and then we'll look at applying them because there's a ton here. And now here's the other thing we'll talk about is favorites, because we have so many different transitions. It's a pain in the neck to go through and find the ones that you really like. Especially you're like, man, that one, I'm going to use that transmission one a lot. Well, that's what favorite will come in handy. So let's go ahead and start looking at here transition. So I put together this little spot of we'll just watch a couple clips of transitions and you can see what it looks like.
Or like the made for kids content where they're not really reading the text or the titles as much.
When we did live streaming way back when.
These drop downs, and they will put more.
Isn't like, you know, traditionally told
point. They speak right to what we
clip. And when the square moves off the next frame, now we're at a whole new video.
The 4-step process. You always look at progress before.
Can't get you up to speed. Yeah. We'll take Camtasia for instance, right? So you can see it's a variety of different ones. If I just scrub through those, you can see this one's like a zoom in effect. You've got on this one, you got this kind of arrow that's coming across. And you can see here, this one's got it's kind of like it's just sliding out of the way with a little bit of a bounce. So tons of different options here in these transitions. This one's like a blur, zoom out, kind of zoom in thing. And this one was, the ripples, which I'm not a fan of the ripples so much, but I wanted to show them off. This one's, I love this one. It's like squiggly lines as a transmission effect, and you go into your next clip. And then you've got this kind of waves. And then you've got here, this one was like a ripple effect, like almost a wave. So tons of different options here as you're looking at these transitions. And you can see the way these are just typical transitions like you'd apply any kind of transition. But there are a ton of them. And a couple things to think about as you're doing this is kind of the impact that's going to have. So let me just go back over to this video here. I'm just going to add, let's say I want to bring in some text. And I'm just going to add some text here. Maybe. There we go. And I'm just going to make that a lot bigger. And let's make it, just make it Arial black just so we can see it a little bit better. In fact, I might even go even larger here. Let's go 500. Okay, so now it's really noticeable, right? I got this text here. I could do lots of different things with it. And I just want this text to transition and maybe in and out. Some of these transitions, just to be aware, it's my computer is saying like, you're doing a lot of things here. That's pretty cool because it only affected the text, right? So that's actually a really cool kind of behavior effect. I love that one. We can change it here. Let's get this blur slide, because sometimes what you'll get is it will affect kind of everything that's on the screen at that point. Oh, that did not change. Come on. Just got to make sure it's applying. My computer's rendering all those, doing all that proxy video in background. Okay, so that one's pretty cool. So what you'll have to do is you have to play with it and see what kind of impact it's going to have. One that I mentioned that I liked is transition or transmission. Another one, this is really fun, is called glitch. It's one of my other favorite new ones. And it looks like it's kind of got that, you know, a glitch effect happening. Let me just scroll back to it so you can see it a little bit. Boom. It looks, so it's kind of a cool effect. It's not something you probably want to use all the time again, but for certain instances and certain meanings, that could be really effective. And you can have it come in on just parts of your clips and not affect the whole thing. However, I'm pretty sure it was like, let's say hexagon. And that one is just working on the text. So, but if you have two clips, sometimes it can get a little bit messy. So you just got to be careful. Now, let's say I really want to always, I want that glitch, the first glitch always available here. There's a little star icon, and I hope you can see it up there. It's a little hard to see on the screen. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit here. And come over here. Let's see, is it going to move over? I don't think it's going to move over for you guys. Okay, we'll zoom out back out because it's better you see it a little bit than not at all. But there's just that star icon. If I hit that star icon, it gets added to my favorite. So then that way it's readily available and you can really just customize the things that you're always using. So transitions are amazing. I don't want to downplay transitions in any way. I just think, remember, as you're making videos and you're thinking about videos, what you want to be thinking about is, how am I going to use this? What's it telling my users or my viewers? And does it make sense? Because we've all seen the PowerPoint presentations that use too many transitions. We've seen videos that say too many transitions. I'm a fan of just cutting, just chop, you know, having jump cuts, things like that. That's going to be very effective. However, when you are looking for a little bit of spice, a little bit added to your video to make it be a little bit more effective, I do think that it can be very powerful to add a transition. Now, the other thing I'll say, and let's just go back to my screen here for a second. Let's say you like that, but you wish it could go the other way. Don't forget, in Camtasia 2020 was added reverse transition, so then you can actually go the other way. You can reverse the effect, basically, so the transition goes in the opposite way. So just another quick little tip there. So I'm gonna looks like some of our proxy video is still in progress. It's making some work there. So we're gonna keep coming back to that here in a second. As it's doing that, one of the things that happens oftentimes when we're making videos is there are lots of audio issues, right? You're dealing with audio, you're trying to balance it out, especially if you're making something, training videos. You got to be careful about using music at all. You don't want to distract your learning from the learning from happening. However, there's times when you want to use music, and I think I've shared this on the show. If not, I'll share. If I have, I'm sorry. If I haven't, it's relevant to this. I was doing a presentation. It was pre-recorded. It was about 20 minutes long because it was for a conference. And I added a music track bed, and I thought, this is gonna be awesome. It's gonna keep things moving. And I brought it way down, and I said, this is awesome. It sounds really good in my headphones. And then I sent it off to people, and they started watching it, and they're like, this is not even watchable. I can't even hear what you're saying. It was frustrating. I was upset with myself for making that mistake because I know better. Getting that balance between the voice and the music is so challenging because you're adding all these dots and you're bringing the audio down. It's called audio ducking. It's frustrating at best, and then sometimes you still mess it up. Well, here's the thing that Camtasia 2021 is going to offer us, and I want to show this. This is going to get crazy because I got a lot of audio tracks here, and I apologize. It's going to sound like noise, but I did this on purpose because I want to show the power of this. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. Okay, so we got all these tracks. I'm gonna play this for just a quick second. I've got 9 video tracks and a music track. This is gonna sound awful. We're talking about okay, you can't make heads or tail of any of that sound. But here's what we're gonna do. We are going to go to our audio effects. There's a new audio effect called emphasize. And with emphasize, it's going to allow us to choose which audio we want to emphasize and bring everything else down. We're not going to get rid of all the other audio, which we could do that too. And in this scenario, who would ever do this? Who would ever put 9 video tracks on the same, it just doesn't make sense. But I want to show this emphasize because this was really cool. So I come here, I'm going to add it to track 6. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit here further so you can still see the edges. There we go, tracks. So it's on track 6. You can see if I pull up the little tab there. There it is. And now I've got this option up here, emphasize, and I can turn how much do I want to emphasize. I know because I practiced with this, I'm gonna turn up to about, let's say 94. That's fine. Now listen to this playback in comparison to what we heard before. The Visual Lounge is something that is a broad topic about customer education. And the reason okay, so we still got some noise in the background. There's still a little bit of the din of all the conversations, but the one track clearly comes talk about customer education. One, it's something I think at TechSmith we're really passionate about, but 2, so now I also have a music track in there. I'm gonna add emphasize to that. Now I've got emphasize on that, and I want that to be about, we'll say 70. And we're going to take that track 6, and we're going to add a little bit more emphasis. We're going to turn this up to 97. And the variable amount depends on what you're dealing with, right? Like normally I'm going something very extreme here for the example, but now let's go back here and let's listen to those tracks. Hey everybody, welcome to the Visual Lounge wherever you're at, whether you're listening live or to the podcast. We're grateful that you're here with us today. And I'm thinking that audio might still be a little bit too much. And so I might want to de-emphasize that even a little bit more, and here it sounds. One of the things that we like to talk about here on the Visual Lounge is something that is a broad topic about customer education. And the reason we talk about customer education, so out of all those tracks, and if I'm still finding issues, I can bring down the audio a little bit more. Of all those tracks though, it was able to quickly and easily get the audio that I wanted to rise above to the top. To me, this is amazing and a huge time saver. And you can add it across multiple clips, or if you have like 2 speakers, you want to emphasize here and emphasize on the next clip to the next speaker, you could easily do that. If you got a music bed, it's going to actually look for those gaps in the audio. So if you got like speaker, a little bit of gap because you're doing demo, and then speaker again, it's going to be like, yep, let's bring the audio up here because there's no one speaking. It's super, super cool. This is one of the things I absolutely love. It is amazing. I've been using it a ton just to emphasize the things that are, it's like, wow, let's get that music and those soundtracks in really proper order here. And so emphasize is one of the things I think is going to save everyone a lot of time. Now, I want everyone to remember with the proxy video, these are like hour-long video clips. It's going to take a little bit of work to get it done. I'm probably a little bit overly ambitious here for our show, but I think it's well worth seeing. So let me check questions here. Krista says, I was hoping for an easy circle picture to pair with my screen capture. Is this in 2021? Did I miss it in 2020? I'm still in 2019, not in 2020. We're going to show some stuff about picture-in-picture to make that a more rounded view. We're going to talk about what's called corner rounding. You'll see that, and when Jason gets here, he's going to cover some of that. So stay tuned because we've got some really great options there. Lots of ways you could do that, but it makes it pretty easy. Now, I'm going to go back to my screen here real quick. We're going to go to our media bin, and you can see we got some still. It's got a little bit of processing here. Got the orange dots means proxy here. It just, even as we just scroll back, let's see, it's struggling a little bit now. You can see, well, let's do this. Let's go to a different project here real quick. So one thing I should say about proxy video here is that once you've created a proxy video, it's basically storing it in the background, so you could delete it, but this one, I've got that same video clip I showed earlier with the proxy video, so it's pulling from that as well. But here's one I want to talk about. It's called media mats. So in previous versions, 2020 to be specific, we had this idea of you could do a track mat, and you could do alpha and invert alpha and luminosity and luminosity invert, and you can still do all that stuff. That's still there, but there's one. It's called a visual effect. That's called a media mat, and that just, you can do something like this really easily. Okay, so we just got it. It's just I just did a graphic text coming in looking like we got over this video in the background. Let me show you real quick. I'm going to recreate this. So I'm just going to drop this video on the timeline. And so we got this video, you know, that's the background we want to, I'm just going to get to my annotations. I'm going to add some text here. And basically I'm just going to, again, take this text and make it to something a little bit bigger. Because I think when you know, you want to do something like that, it's you want it to be a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier to actually mask out the things that you're doing here. So let me just scale it. Wrong one. I'm not going to. I want to scale up my call out here a little bit. There we go. That's good. So now, if I want to mask this out, I can go to my visual effects, and I can come here to Media Mat, and it was not named after me, and I just click and drag that on, and then it's going to show through those things below. And then, of course, you've got some different, you can change different modes. So if you wanted to, you know, depending on what you're trying to do with that effect and what your kind of graphic you're using, you can even change the intensity a little bit. So super easy to do. Now, the other thing that's here that I think is really awesome is we have this other effect called motion blur. So right now, nothing's happening with this mat. It is just kind of static on the screen, which is fine. Hey, no complaints, right? But if I animate this, one of the things, like I can get this, let me just drag it off to the side here, get it out of the way. And then when I just add an effect, so we're gonna go to animations, I'm just gonna do a custom animation on it, and I'm gonna drag this so it's a little bit longer. There we go. And I'm gonna add that custom effect here and just zoom in on my timeline a little bit so we can see it. Gonna make this a little bit longer. And then I'm basically at the end of this, what I want it to do is end up, say, right here. And when that plays back, it's fine, but it doesn't feel like it's kind of a weird motion. One of the new effects is visual effects is called motion blur. I'm just gonna click and drag that to my timeline. So now as it moves, you can see that blurriness, and it's adding that blurriness to give it the effect and that feeling of movement, which I think is really cool because it feels more natural. It feels kind of like this, like it's really moving. Like just like if I'm on camera and I'm moving like this, you know, there's some blur there, right? There, you get the effect. Well, that's what it's doing on the screen with these effects as well. The other thing just to point out here is if you right click and you get these animation easing types, there are some different ones, and they've been there. You just maybe didn't know about it, but like watch the spring one here as it goes through with that new motion blur. Yeah, kind of you can see it whipping past. Just gonna play it back in slow, like even on when it gets a little bit of recoil. So just a super favorite thing, and I love the interplay here of motion and graphics, and now that we got proxy video, it's going to be easier to see the changes that you're making as you're going along. So we've got Jason. He is in the waiting room. He's going to come in just a second, but I've got one more thing I want to talk about first because it's something I'm also really excited about. I mean, how do you not be excited about all these things, actually? With our proxy video still going in the background, but we're going to try this. So I'm going to move to a screen here in just a second. But the last thing I want to talk about, it has a funny name. It's called a LUT, L-U-T, or lookup table is what it stands for. And you might hear it referred to as a 3D LUT. And these are basically, it's a series of instructions for color that says to the video, like, color it this way, color it that way. And there are a ton of available you can go and get for free out on the internet. You have to obviously, make sure you're not downloading something from somebody you don't trust. But we're gonna look at these because I love that in an instant you can change the look and feel of your video and the coloration of it for lots of different reasons. Professional color graders or people who do coloration on videos use these types of things to also get a consistent feel across all your videos. So we're going to go here. We got this video here. This is untouched, just previous episode video like we're watching today. And if we go to our visual effects, we got this color LUT. And I'm just going to click and drag it down to this clip here. Hopefully, let me make sure it's selected. I'm just going to click it to the timeline. You can see now there is a color LUT. Now when I go there, and I go to my properties, you'll see that you've got this color LUT I can turn on or off. Now instantly, there's probably, if you do this in Camtasia right now, you're only going to find enhanced contrast. But you can go through and you can just play with the intensity to see what impact it has on the way your video looks. And you can download, as I have done, from a variety of different places, all these different views of these LUTs. There's a ton of them. So let's do this Mile 5. You can see it looks like it's a little bit more washed out. I can adjust the coloration. We can do this neon one. It's, bring up the coloration a little bit more red. You got this sprocket. I mean, and the thing is, you'll have to try out, see kind of the look and feel of what you're going for. Some of these I don't love. I would probably never use, but I put them in here because I wanted the examples. Let's try Chemical 168. So this one's got kind of that chemical looking look and feel. Maybe, like a horror movie, a little bit edge of a horror movie or action movie. You can see a Bourbon 64 is a little red. Ooh, this one looks like a little bit sepia-ish. And so it just depends on what LUT you're using. It's going to change the look and feel. But the cool thing is it's really easy then to apply that look and feel to any of your videos. So for instance, if I just take one of these, we can see which one it's going to apply to. We can see. It must be the one with the graphic on it. So, but again, you can get that consistent look and feel across those. So I really like LUTs. It gets us a long way, a lot closer to having color correction. It's not a color correction. It's not meant to be color correction, but it definitely can add some variety. And again, with purpose, that spice to your next video. So we've covered a couple of things already. Proxy video, it's still a work in progress because it's still turning those videos into the proxy videos because they're all so big. We've talked about the transitions. We've talked about our audio enhancements. I covered media mats, and then we talked and a little bit of motion blur. I know Jason might cover those again. I got excited and covered them anyway. And then the 3D LUTs. And again, 3D LUTs are super awesome, but there's the contrast one, but you might need to go download some other ones. So with that said, let's introduce and assign, get him in here. Jason, welcome to the Visual Lounge.
Well, hey, Matt, thanks so much for having me. Sounds like you're having a grand old time going through feature sets inside of 2021.
You know what? I mentioned this on LinkedIn this morning that I really feel like this is probably the best release of Camtasia I've seen, and I think part of it is just it feels really like these are nice enhancements that have like expanded what I feel like I can do in Camtasia. Like I'm gonna be honest, I'm a pretty basic video creator. I don't go out and do a bunch of really super crazy stuff. I do a lot of like presentations. I do some share out videos, and I put a little bit of spice into them, but this is like opened up like, oh man, look what I can do. I just feel like it enhances everything I've done. And it feels like the performance has been really, really good. Like even like, I think you probably could see what I was working on, but I've got 9 videos on my screen. Once I get those all proxied, I know it's going to be like easy peasy to go through and make those changes and edit. So it's been really rock solid for me. So our developers are, they're the awesome ones. We're the lucky ones. We just get to talk about it.
We just get to play, right?
Right.
So I was going to mention, you were talking about proxy video really quick. One of the things I think is actually really valuable about that is you've mentioned here on the Visual Lounge and in the past that usually the best camera someone has available to them is usually sitting in their pocket. It's some sort of smartphone. And those cameras shoot such high quality video that when you bring them into Camtasia, they're big. They're big chunky boys. And that's actually how I've utilized proxy video as of late, which was just converting footage of my children's outdoor activities or sporting activities just to be able to edit that. But there are a couple things I wanted to share today, and it sounds like you might have hit on a few, so I want to make sure I don't double dip unless people have questions.
We're happy to double dip. You might have something. So we'll just go through your list, Jason. If you haven't yet, go. Do you want to share? I'm assuming you want to share your screen. So
yeah.
We need to,
Yep. I'm going to pull that up right now, so that I am sharing my Camtasia editor interface. One of the things I think I want to talk about first does come from a creator side, a content creator side with Camtasia. For those of us who work in a 2-monitor setup, we've always had the privilege of being able to start a recording and just casually move the recorder over to another screen. A lot of us, however, when we started working remote, we had just our laptops available to us, or whatever the singular screen was that's available. With the introduction of the release of Camtasia 2021, the recorder window, which has been completely redesigned by Matt. Matt, if you hadn't talked about that, I'll actually pull that up here right now.
I hadn't yet, so this is good.
Okay, beautiful. So this right here is the brand new, I like to call it really cleaned up, really modernized version of the recorder window. Be aware that it is constantly being iterated on by our team. They're making changes under the hood. They're releasing things in maintenance updates. So if you're currently using Camtasia 2021, keep it updated as often as you can, because you're going to see changes to this. But it's still the same thing, asking those 3 questions. What do you want people to be able to see with your screen choices here? Do you want them to see you? So if I were to, turn on my other webcam, I've got the second one turned on here. So there's my second webcam. Hi, everybody.
Jason and his 5 webcams.
My 5 webcams. I got to be on camera. I have my microphone choices here, and I also have the system audio. The difference is with Camtasia 2021 is we introduced something called window masking. And it sounds like a fancy term, but if you've been in a Zoom call with anyone and you're not the host, you usually do not see those Zoom controls on your screen, right? So if you and I, Matt, are in a call, in a meeting using something like Zoom, I'm not going to see any of your controls if you're the host. Well, the same thing happens with the Camtasia recorder. As a matter of fact, I'm going to run a command because I forgot to turn that on. So we'll do that real quick. That allows you to see something that's kind of fun. So if we bring up Camtasia and I bring up that recorder, just like before, when I hit the record button, Matt, you're going to see a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then you shouldn't see anything else on your screen.
We're waiting for it. Oh, where'd it go?
Right. So I'm just doing my recording, but as a matter of fact, my mouse that's moving around on the screen is moving around a recorder interface that has been hidden or masked from view. That means I can use the recording, use the tool while I'm recording, and it won't show up in my final video. So let me show you what I am seeing so that everyone gets a sense of what exactly I'm talking about.
Well, Jason, as you're doing that, I love this because I know for me in Camtasia, I know there are hotkeys that I can just kind of control, start and stop, but I don't know how long I've been on a Mac and I still don't remember the hotkey to start, pause, and stop my recording. So I guess I got to go up to the thing, but having the controller right there might, just for sound adjustments for all, maybe I want to switch on things. So I love that it's hidden in the recording. So even if it's there on my screen, I can still utilize it, but then it's going to get out of my way. So I think that's just awesome. And that's a Windows only feature right now, correct? Mac as well.
It masks on both sides. Yeah. So when I hit record this time, I actually turned off the masking with a special code I have. And this is what I'm seeing while you're there. Now, I don't have my webcam turned on, but there is something really valuable for me as a creator, and that's my volume meter. I can make sure that while I'm speaking to you and doing my screen recording and talking through the awesomeness that I'm sharing with you, that my microphone is in fact picking up my voice and that it's staying in the right levels, because I don't want to move too far back or too close. But because it's masked by default, you won't see any of this in my final recording. And I just find that to be a very powerful, powerful tool. When you have your webcam turned on, you will also see the webcam preview. I'm animated when I do my videos. I kind of move around, and I definitely have pulled myself out of frame a few times. But having that there as a visual reminder that I'm still in frame, that my background still looks good, It's just a really helpful tool in terms of creation.
Yeah, I love
Super
it.
thrilled by that.
Yeah. If you're listening to the podcast afterwards, of course, feel free to email us at thevisuallounge@techsmith.com. So, okay, Jason, we got the recorder. What's next on your list of things that you think we should all know about? Because we've shared a few, but what else?
So the next thing I definitely want to talk about is a combination of what you showed everyone here and talked about, which was that motion blur. Motion blur definitely adds a less robotic attachment to your videos, right? You can actually see the motion of something happening. What I like to do is combine it with a couple of effects here inside of Camtasia 2021, which is motion blurring and then moving my webcam out of the way. But one of the biggest things that people have asked us for is some sort of ability to not only adjust the webcam, which we have easily done for years, right? We've always been able to do that little postage stamp thing in the corner. I could go into my visual effects and add that same motion blur that you added as well. But we added a couple of new things that helps. One is found right here in the visual effects section, and that is something simple called corner rounding. I can apply this effect just the same way I apply any other effect by clicking and dragging it onto my media. And then it shows up over in my properties panel with the different parameters and effects that I can change. So corner rounding, I simply choose the corners that I want to affect. Maybe I want the upper left and lower right, and then I adjust the radius on them by clicking and dragging them out. So I'm kind of doing I forget what that's called. I don't know. It's kind of like a double tear shape or teardrop shape. But for people like me that really want that, that punch out look, I can actually change those different radiuses based on how the camera, was set up originally. Like right now it's set in that 16:9 format. So if I wanted to get it maybe more circular, which is like numero uno, I could use that media matte effect that you talked about a little bit earlier. But I actually have another trick way to do it. And it combines another tool that we added inside of Camtasia 2021, which is these nondescript little slider buttons here. These are toggleable effects. So I can apply lots of different effects to my media and then turn them off and on just to kind of see how things look and how things change. So what I'm going to do to give it more of a circular look is I'm actually just going to turn on the cropping tool inside of Camtasia. And I'm going to crop my video down just a little bit to take out some of those sharp edges on the outside. And then reapply my corner rounding. And now I can actually make it much more of a circular effect the same way that you would do with some sort of punch out tool or the media mat. So now when I play this video back, you'll see that it drops down into the corner and turns itself into a little hole punch for my picture in picture.
Well, we actually had a question for that, Jason. So that's a perfect answer. And I love, I think the interesting thing is it took because I was watching, I was like, oh, well, how's he going to do this? Because I've not seen you do this. And I was like, oh, how's he going to do it? But just understanding that when you have something that's wide, 16:9, it doesn't it's not going to make a good circle. But the fact that you cropped it to be more square allows it to make a more perfect circle. So I think that's a great tip. And with the cropping feature inside of Camtasia, would you point that out again on the screen real quick where that's at?
Yeah.
Because I think
the cropping tool is, it's right up here above the canvas. We actually have three tools. We have our standard pointer tool. We have a hand tool that allows you to move your content around if you want to refocus your canvas. And then you have the cropping tool that's up here on the right that allows you to crop whatever particular piece of media that you have selected. And if you happen to not know if it's selected or not, when you have crop mode turned on and a media selected, the actual border of it turns blue. When it's not selected, it's clear or yellow, depending on what's on your canvas. So just a little tip there. Crop mode is right up here at the top of your screen. You can also, if you're a Windows user, hold down the Alt key and you can crop on the fly without having to go up and switch to it any given time.
Yeah, and crop has been there for a long time, so that's a great tip. That's one of those things you don't know what to do with it necessarily, and then once you do, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many cool things I can do when I start to crop my videos. And I've seen some really cool green screens with, actually I've done this before, where I've cropped my video so I'm on one side of the video and then I'm also on the other side of the video and having a conversation with myself. So there's some cool stuff that you can do just by cropping some of those videos. So
Absolutely.
Love it, Jason. I love the rounded corners and toggle effects. So I think that's really cool because now all of a sudden, I think before it was kind of painful to like add, take. I think now you just like, oh, that doesn't look right. Let's just turn it off.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's great is I could render out a couple different versions of the same video just by toggling things on and off to get feedback. If I'm creating a piece of content for one of our customers or for someone on my team, they're like, this looks great, except I really don't like the glow effect. I'm like, no problem. I can just turn off the glow effect, render the video back out, and it's ready to go with very little effort on my part, which I'm all about, speed and efficiency.
Yeah. Well, Jason, this is fantastic stuff. Any other things that we should be aware of in Camtasia 2021 that we haven't talked about so far?
Well, let's see. You covered emphasize audio, right? Which is
I did.
Probably my favorite new feature, only because it all of a sudden opens up possibilities based on the audio music files that we do include in the library inside of Camtasia 2021. Now you can utilize those and have that great backing track. Did you discuss the new grouping capability inside of Camtasia?
We have not talked about the new grouping capability. So let's dig into that, because I know I thought I saw in the comments kind of in passing someone was talking about grouping. It might not have been a real positive experience, but let's talk about from your experience, Jason, from grouping. So just kind of a base level for everyone who doesn't know, grouping allows you to take multiple tracks and basically kind of group it together, which then you can edit it in, at least from a Mac user's perspective, in a whole other kind of little package, but cleans up a timeline. I actually had a really great conversation with someone recently and talked about why grouping might be advantageous for their project, because it's like they had 20 tracks and so I think there's lots of helpful things about grouping. So, okay, so you got a few things on timeline.
Yep. So I threw a couple of call outs up here on the timeline to give a good representation of what this is going to do. Our Mac users have always enjoyed what you're talking about. Both platforms, let me rephrase, have been able to group for quite a while. What we've done on the Windows side is change the approach and made the grouping even more powerful. So grouping is exactly that. I can select all of these call outs that I want to have in a group. And why would I want them in a group? Well, maybe I want to move them all in the same place. I want to reposition them. I want to add them to the library so they can be reused in other projects. But when we group things now, there's a couple things that happen. One, I'm just going to right click on it and choose to group it. I get my grouped media, but as soon as I do that, you'll notice something has happened over here in my properties panel. And that is Camtasia has applied auto quick properties to that group, meaning I can go in here and make changes to the text for one of those callouts and have it affect it right within that group without having to open the group up and drill down and make changes. I can apply a theme to that entire group at once. So maybe I want my Camtasia colors on all of them at the same time. It's really, really helpful. I can do things if I'm creating content or groups for other people by using the quick property editor, which is found in the upper right-hand corner, this little kind of pen glyph here on the right. The quick property editor, this is the deep cuts, Matt. This is where we're getting to the point where I can actually take pieces within that group and link them together. Okay, so I can move things around and have them all positioned and link them together inside of the editor itself. And when I save this back out, now when I make changes, it affects all the content that I have linked together. So these last two callouts on the fly were linked together. Maybe I don't want those to be green. Maybe I want them to be blue. Maybe I want these to be white. You can change those all around. You can change what the actual naming of them are. If you don't want to say text, if you want to say steps, if you're teaching someone a stepping situation, or if you want it to be, instead of call out, you say speech bubbles, whatever you want to do in terms of creating those quick properties that allow someone to take the content that you've created with a little bit of guidance from you or whoever is asking the content to be created. And then now you can create videos with consistency based on those quick property edits. The other part of grouping, which is actually the big change on the Windows side, is when you go to open a group. In fact, down here on my timeline, if I wanted to open this group up and make some edits, when I double click that now, it opens, like our Mac counterparts, in its own tab, meaning I can make changes within this group without having to worry about affecting other parts of my timeline. Usually I group things when I'm getting to the point where things are timed just right or positioned just right. And I'll admit, I've been using Camtasia a long time, and I might accidentally bump something a frame or two, and then it's out of sync from where I want it. The groups allow me to drill right in within those group tabs, make changes in the tab itself, knowing that it's only affecting what's happening in that group. And then when I close that group out, it has been changed based on my needs, and it's ready to be used right there in the project.
Oh, that is awesome. That's some, in fact, I don't know that I'd seen all that linking of the groups, and but definitely for people working in their organizations, in their groups, that's such a powerful concept that I could do all this upfront work and then have someone else go through and whether make changes or use it as a template, kind of as part of whatever template I'm creating for them. Jason, we are starting to get a few questions. I want to make sure we're asking. This first one, we might need a little bit of context. So Jesse, if you have more context for it, that's helpful. W. Hatcher on LinkedIn said that was neat. So I don't know, this was a little bit ago, so I don't know what exactly it was that was neat. But it says, what about adjusting the size of a video from a cell phone? How can you make it larger so it's a normal video size, the video's vertical? And I'm going to start here, and then you can tell me what you think, Jason, is that if you're working with a vertical video, and I'm trying to find my phone here, so I'm working with a vertical video, that's never going to match the 19 or 16 by 9 landscape view, right? It's never going to match. And so what you'll have to decide to do is do you want it to scale it up really big and try to fill as much of that as you can, but then it's going to crop, or do you want to put that in there like at its full size and then do something in the background? Because you could do lots of cool things in the background. Like you could actually just take that same video, scale it really big, so it does fill the whole background, and put a blur over it, and then put the video that people are going to watch on top of it. That's what I would probably do. And I think the context is media mats, Jason. But is there something that you would recommend for someone doing vertical video on their inside of Camtasia, what they should do?
Sure. So I actually do the exact same thing you're talking about, Matt, but I have to think if I'm creating a content that involves vertical video, I'm assuming that we're putting it on some sort of social media that accepts vertical video, where that's the norm. If that's the case, it's a good thing to note that if you open up a brand new project inside of Camtasia and the first piece of media that you put on the timeline or on the canvas is that vertical video, Camtasia actually will resize its canvas to match that media right away. So you won't worry about black bars or any sort of missing area of your screen, of the canvas being empty. It will fill the entirety of that size canvas of that vertical video, as long as it's the first piece of media on the timeline. If it's not the first piece of media, it is good to note that at the top of the editor up here in the drop-down menu, there is an option here called Project Settings. And underneath those project settings is where you have control over your canvas dimensions. Everything from your standard 16 by 9 widescreen format that Matt and I have been talking about. We even have sizing for Instagram or Facebook cover videos. We've thought a lot about how these things work. If you have a piece of media on there that didn't auto adjust, or you changed the settings later on, you can always choose Fit to Visible, and it will find that content and wrap the canvas around it so that it fits without any black bar. Be aware, that's going to take a little bit of practice, but we try and take a little bit of the challenging part out of it right away at the beginning.
Okay, Jason, we're going to go to our next question because this one was a good one. Is Krista asked, what are markers? Why do they keep appearing? What do I use them for? She's in 2019.
Sure.
So, markers are one of those things. I have felt her pain. They keep appearing, and because I think later on she said, "How do I turn them off?" And she did get her answer from someone in chat, but we can cover it here too. So, markers, what are they?
So markers are just that. They're marker indicators that you can put on your timeline or on pieces of media that have multiple purposes. You can title them, which then turns them into a table of contents that you can export with Camtasia later on. People sometimes use markers within their editing. Just as a quick reminder, if I'm making an edit today and I leave the video at lunchtime and come back tomorrow morning, I'm like, oh, left off here or wherever it is. As soon as you said she's accidentally turning, how do I keep turning these things on? It happens to me too. Markers are turned on over here in the left-hand side of your timeline. There's a little drop-down menu that says quiz, and it says markers. And if you've toggled that on by mistake, that is how the markers show up. And then you drag your mouse along the timeline, and you'll see this little blue plus that I can indicate markers anywhere I want on my timeline. Or, as we mentioned, you can actually put markers right on your media. And they can be named right over here in the properties panel. But the biggest purpose of markers, in my estimation, is if you're going to be creating a table of contents so that people can easily search through, say, a longer piece of media, or you want people to be able to drill right down to certain parts of information, that's what they are used for. Side note, if you record your PowerPoint presentation with Camtasia using the plugin, whenever you switch slides, we will automatically add a marker to your timeline so that you can also create an easy table of contents for people to be able to jump through your content as needed. But if it's turned on by mistake, you can just click this little caret button and turn it off. And of course, there is keyboard shortcuts, Control M, to turn on and off those markers as well.
And I'll just add one thing I've used markers for that is a little bit more obscure usage is to create when I'm creating something that's interactive. Now, there's lots of limitations on interactive video because where you publish it really matters. You can't just publish it to YouTube or your LMS. You need to do some stuff. But I put markers in when I want to have jump points. Maybe you could do a very lightweight, I don't really recommend this, but lightweight like scenario branching video. It just gets super complicated super quick. But markers make a world of difference in doing that, because then you can link to marker and have a jump point based on a button or whatever kind of clickable spot you put in there. So,
yep, that's very true.
Well, Jason, we're getting close to time here, and these have all been super awesome questions. And I know there was another question about rounded corners, just basically what it was called. That's where you make the circle, right? That's the feature again. And
Yep,
that was an interactive visual effect, right?
Yep, corner rounding underneath the visual effects tool.
Perfect. Well, Jason, first of all, thank you so much for joining me today and coming in, because I love that you've got the Windows perspective, and I'm a pretty heavy Mac user nowadays, and so, but I think overall we've covered a ton. I mean, this release is just really, really fantastic, and I'm again just hopefully everyone's out there. You get a chance, even if you're still working on an older version, you can do the trial for the 30 days, give it a go. You'll get the watermark if you haven't purchased, but you get to see some of these effects and actions, see that they're going to work for you. If you have maintenance, which if you don't, you probably should get maintenance, but you would have gotten this version for free. If you get maintenance on whatever version you get next, if you buy this one, add maintenance on, because you're not only going to get priority support, you're going to get the next version of Camtasia for free. And Jason, then they're going to get the certification access to our certification program, which, as you know, because I've worked on it for a long time now, you've worked on it, and it is a ton of content and I don't know if you go through that, how you don't end up feeling confident in your usage of Camtasia.
It's usually you'll go through it and you'll discover, even if you're a longtime Camtasia user, you're going to pick up several little tips and tricks along the way. You're like, oh, if I had only known that back then. And your workflow changes, your content changes, and you're right. You feel proud because you've now leveled yourself up quite easily.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jason, let's do a little thing we're trying here, and this is a little bit more off the cuff because you came in late, and we're not you're just helping me out mostly. But we're gonna do a speed round questions. So okay, are you ready?
I am ready.
Get ready. Quick, short answers. That's all we're looking from you. Camtasia 20 to Camtasia 21, favorite feature?
Favorite feature, emphasize audio.
Favorite new feature, emphasize audio. Perfect.
Without question.
The craziest series of effects that you've ever applied to a particular video?
Oh, probably stacking 3 behaviors at once and combining it with one of these new wipes in 2021. It was intense.
Nice. Would you prefer to listen to country music or alternative indie rock?
Alternative indie rock 100% of the time. Not a country fan.
Perfect. Favorite TechSmith product that's not Camtasia?
Audiate. I'm a big fan of audio. Audio is a big part of my life. Definitely Audiate.
And for those that don't know, Audiate is a program. Actually, someday we'll see. I see it in the menu. We'll get some more integrations with Camtasia. But basically, you can drop your audio in there, and it will transcribe it and give you an SRT file, which can be used for captioning. You can go through and automatically remove ums and ahs from the audio, which is amazing. And I'm looking forward to even further connections of that when we get to that point. So it's gonna be good. So if you haven't checked out Audiate, we got a free trial of that. No credit card required. Go check it out. Well, Jason, thanks again for joining me. Thanks for your awesome insight. Jason, I know you guys are doing webinars all the time. How would someone go about, if they want to really dig into Camtasia to learn more, where could they find out more information about those?
Sure. So if you're inside of Camtasia itself, if you go to the help menu, you can choose video tutorials right at the top of the screen, and that will take you to our tutorial page, which we're constantly iterating on and making sure that it's up to date and new. You can also go up to the support menu and choose webinars. And this is also where I spend a great deal of my time updating and creating webinars for gaining knowledge. Like next week, we have 4 in one day of all what's new in Camtasia. We conducted one yesterday on using Camtasia and editing audio with Audiate, like we were just kind of talking about. And we're going to be updating all these choices on a regular basis down here. We have Snagit ones, and we have thought leadership ones as well that come from you, Matt, and your side of the house with a lot of the thought leadership and things outside of the products per se, but more about content creation, marketing, SEO, value of visuals, and all the things that we help you with here at TechSmith.
Perfect. Well, I'm looking through I'm catching up on some of the chat stuff, and I love that people are loving proxy video. I love that you guys are one call out for standalone projects on Windows, which we didn't talk about even.
Oh my gosh, we didn't even talk about. That's probably my favorite. Shoot, yeah, it's so normal for me now because organization. I need help.
Yes. Well, Jason, thanks once again for joining me. We're always happy to have you here on the Visual Lounge. With that said, I want to thank everybody who has tuned in today, asked questions. If you're listening to podcasts, thank you so much for that as well. If you got comment, feedback, things you want to tell us, let us know. Email thevisuallounge@techsmith.com. We're happy to take your questions, happy to hear your commentary. And if you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook, you're on whatever platform you're listening to podcasts, if it gives you a chance to rate us or give a thumbs up, a like, whatever it might be, please do so. We love to hear from you guys. That helps us to know that we're doing the right types of content. So hopefully you're getting a lot out of every episode. We'll be back next week. We got an awesome guest, Valerie Pennington. She's also known as the Penguin Prof. She is doing awesome stuff on YouTube. She's in higher education, teaching her faculty how to create online learning. We're going to be talking to her about creating videos and things like that. So don't forget to tune in next week, same time, same channel. And whatever you're doing, whether you're making videos, images, creating better audio, we hope that you take a little time to level up every single day. We'll see you next week.